welcome back to another episode of Lost Codex Legends. My name is Jesse, and it's been a few days. I've been playing Classic. Have you been playing Classic? How's everyone enjoying Classic? Do we all feel like we're young kids again? 14? I feel like I'm 14. Aged 14 years with the login times. We're not going to talk about Classic. But today we're talking about Thrall again. And the reason why we're not doing Thrall's story in one big long video, you know I can talk for 2 hours. I know you guys want to listen for 2 hours. But YouTube doesn't like that format. That doesn't tickle YouTube's interest in terms of their preferred content. And so in order to keep things fresh and engaging while not rambling in a 2.5 hour long podcast format, we're going to break it into segments. So Thrall's story today will cover Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, and the beginning of Cataclysm, the Shattering events. This is to create a sort of episodic feel for these larger characters with massive storylines, and it allows us to break up certain parts of their story. If you want to watch a full long 2 hour Thrall video, we'll just wait till part 4 is at part 5. Who knows how many parts it's going to have. Once that's out, then just binge watch them all together, and there you go. There's your format. Everyone's happy. Without further ado, let us begin with Thrall's story in Burning Crusade. It is the year 25, and Thrall has now entered negotiations with the Blood Elves. Sylvanas has recommended to Thrall and the other leaders that maybe it's time to talk to these elves. And while Thrall is a little bit unsure about their use of fell magic in response to their addiction and everything that's happened to them, there is strategic value in bringing the Blood Elves into the Horde. Now, although the Elves of Silvermoon have had conflicts with the Horde in the past, specifically the Old Horde, their recent incursions against the Scourge and the massive devastation they've faced the Elves have shown their courage and their resolve to defend their homelands. Because the relations between Quel'Thalas and the Alliance were soured when Kael'thas joined Illidan and Lady Vashj, the Elves need allies, and Thrall sees this as an opportunity, not only to grow the Horde and to add to their ranks and to bolster the faction that he is building, but also as a chance to show compassion and honor, because the Blood Elves, newly named Blood Elves, have suffered a lot with their magical addiction, the massive devastation that they lost to the Scourge, and the destruction when Arthas went to town. All of that, this is a chance for Thrall, and specifically Cairn's mentioned in Chronicle as well, to help these elves find peace. And so the Blood Elves join the Horde, and the Horde gains another stronghold on the Eastern Kingdoms. At this time, as demons have started to pour from the Dark Portal, and making everyone uneasy, and realizing that the portal to Outland is now reopened, Thrall receives word from the player, a letter from Nazgrel delivered by the player, about his people in Outland. And Eitrigg is with him at the time, and he's really caught up in the moment. He's like, oh my god, my people, the uncorrupted orcs who did not succumb to the demon's blood of the old Horde, have been there the whole time? What? And he's really excited, but also like, that's an emotional moment for him. And he's like, we gotta go now! And Eitrigg's like, yo dude, like, you gotta leave someone in charge. You gotta like prepare and leave Orgrimmar. You can't just leave the city. You're kind of the war chief. And he's like, oh right, fine. Now, it's not really explained if Thrall is among the initial several groups that go to Outland. Of course, the Horde arrives and they see the Alliance as Honor Hold, so they build Thrallmar. But before they can do anything, the Horde attacks Hellfire Citadel, and the Horde is actually responsible for taking out Kargath Bladefist directly. After their victory in Hellfire Peninsula, the Horde, along with Thrall, ride to Garadar in Nagrend, named after his late grandfather, Garad. Here, Thrall finds his last remaining family member, his grandmother Gaia, who is terribly old at this point. Like, she's old. Like, Drekthar's old, she's old. And she reveals to Thrall that his birth name is Goel. And there's a really, really tender moment between grandmother and grandson here. And it's one of those moments that I would have loved to have seen in cinematic form. Thrall, can you imagine, like, modern day, I'm not talking like Starfang HD cinema, I mean, that'd be cool too. I'm talking like in-game Thrall model, you know, seeing his grandmother for the first time and seeing this old, ancient shaman, Gaia, who is the leader of these, or who is the rather spiritual leader of these orcs. And that first encounter between Thrall learning who he is, learning about Goel and his parents, and his grandmother. While in Garadar, Thrall meets the infamous son of Grommash Hellscream, the one and only Garrosh Hellscream. Now, Garrosh is actually the leader of this village. He's in charge. But he's kind of mopey. He's kind of glummed out. And some of the orcs kind of make comment like, he's just bummed. He views his father as a monster. All he knows is stories that Grom Hellscream drank the blood first, which it's not stories, that's fact. He thinks that his father's the one that led his people to damnation, and I guess he did lead them to damnation by being the first one to drink, but it was Blackhand and Gul'dan who was in charge, but he doesn't know that. He just thinks that his dad was a complete and total asshole. And Grom had his moments. But when Thrall's here, Thrall shows him a vision. Thrall shows him a depiction of what happened between Grom, Manaroth, and Thrall, and he shows Grom's final moments of defying Manaroth and sinking Gorhal into his chest and killing the demon, freeing the orcs from the blood curse, and dying with that final kill as his last redeeming act. And Garrosh is shown that his father really was a hero. While Grom had many faults, Grom did many things wrong, in the end, Grom died a hero. And after this, Thrall manages to convince Garrosh to come back to Azeroth and serve as one of his advisors, alongside Rhaegar and Eitrig and all these other orcs. And he really wants Garrosh to become a part of the Horde. And so the events of Burning Crusade happen. Thrall really doesn't do anything for the rest of the expansion. It's because we players do everything. And after he returns from Outland, at some point, there's a scene in the comics between Rhaegar and Garrosh. And there are some blatantly opposite thoughts going on here. It's funny because Rhaegar used to be, a slave master, but he's really come a long way. He's encouraging diplomacy. He's like, man, we gotta talk with these guys. We can work together. While Garrosh is like, screw that. Let's just beat them up. And Garrosh really doesn't know anything about the Alliance. I'm sure that Thrall has explained to him who they are, but I'm sure Garrosh has also gotten, they imprisoned our people. We were, gotten the orcish side of things. We were trying to flee from a dying world. We needed a new home. We wanted to settle here. And then they, we went to war with them and they imprisoned us. And then he hears what they did to the, elves. And he hears that they hate trolls, and probably hears they have cows on farms, and the Tauren are offended because of that. And he's just like, man, screw these guys. And so Garrosh hates the Alliance, really, with no explanation. Garrosh is trying to prove himself. Now that Dad's not a dick, Garrosh is like, okay, well now I can be a dick. And so there's some disagreements between. There's actually like a screaming match going on between Rhaegar, because that's how orcs talk. There's no such thing as diplomacy. It's whoever can yell louder wins. That's how orc diplomats work. In case you didn't know, that's fact. Now, Jaina, who is an advisor to King Varian, feels the same way as Rhaegar. Obviously, she's like, you know what? Despite the fact that Dad's dead and everything bad happened, we've done a lot of good together, and we can definitely work together. And she calls Thrall into a meeting. And now that Varian's back, and there's not some creepy black dragon running Stormwind, things can be made more official. There can be an official treaty signed between the Horde and the Alliance now that this whole Burning Crusade crap is over. Thrall obviously agrees with Jaina and Rhaegar, and a peace summit is called in Theramore, where everyone and their grandmother, except Gaia, she wasn't invited, is invited to Theramore. Despite him agreeing with this peace summit, Thrall is a little bit uneasy because he feels that the city of Orgrimmar, the people of the Horde, are as divided as his advisors are. Some of them are like, yeah, you know what, we can do this. And other of them are like, screw the Alliance, and just, other ones, half of them are PvPers, other ones are normal servers, and it's just not good at all. He speaks to his advisors, and because Rhaegar's pro-peace, invites both of them to the summit, feels that Garrosh's mind can be changed. Thrall doesn't know Garrosh very well at this point. They travel by Zeppelin to Theramore, and things actually go quite well. There's some trade talk, everything going on. I think that Garrosh meets Anduin for the first time, and everything's going well, and there's some a little bit awkward tensions when Rhaegar's there with Valyra and Varian, but it's like, hey, old buddy. But everything goes well, until it doesn't. Varian has to leave really fast because Goldshire and South Shore are under attack by the Scourge. And yeah, just Scourge are randomly attacking. What? This is very sudden. Things are suddenly going south very fast. South Shore, get it? No. And just as he goes to leave, the Twilight's Hammer decides to ruin everyone's day, as they do. Now, the Twilight's Hammer is a cult, a former orc clan, now run by Cho'Gall, and they have a whole mixture of races from across Azeroth to ruin everyone's day in the name of the old gods. And they're pretty smart in this attack. What they do is they have varying races of Horde races and Alliance races in this attack, and they get them to attack the opposite faction. So the gnomes and the human members of the cultists attack only the Horde members who are in Theramore, while the orcs and trolls and whoever in the cults attack only the Alliance members at Theramore. This makes it seem that it is not a random group of crazies attacking, but rather a strategic ambush by the opposite faction during this peace summit, and all hell breaks loose. A massive battle occurs in Theramore. At this point, Medan shows up, and this is where we kind of raise our brows and go, how much of this is actually real? It's worth mentioning Medan here because Garona's also involved, Medan's mother. Varian catches sight of Garona during this attack and automatically assumes Thrall has sent her to kill him, just as Garona killed his own father back during the First War. Medan is here to protect his mother, and as a result, the Twilight see him as a target, and he ends up getting kidnapped. Whether or not this whole scene or Medan is canon, the attack is canon. Medan's presence, it's unclear. Alternatively, if that's not canon, then the cultist casualties are simply really high, and they all lost, rather than fleeing with Medan as a prisoner. Garrosh accuses the Alliance of orchestrating this attack, while Varian accuses the Horde. Thrall, then Rhaegar and Valyria, everyone tries to calm these two down, but the damage is done. The cultists have done their jobs, there's bodies of the opposite faction on both sides, and they're not exactly wearing "I joined the Twilight's cult and got this shitty shirt. It's all very ambiguous, and so everyone leaves on high tensions and nothing is well. Jaina and Thrall say farewell, and they're obviously disappointed that this attack occurred, and any chance at peace was kind of ruined at this point. Now, after this summit, Thrall returns home and finds that the Scourge is not just attacking South Shore and Goldshire, but the entire world, and Orgrimmar is a target. A massive new plague has been launched, which is rapidly turning civilians and citizens and heroes of all kind into undead monsters. We players experience that in the Wrath of the Lich King pre-event. And so work is set in motion to figure out a cure for this, like something needs to be done. A forsaken apothecary by the name of Putris manages to find a cure and saves the day for everyone, but Thrall realizes that more must be done here. This attack wasn't just random, this wasn't just a random skirmish, something is going on here. Now, Thrall decides he's going to play it safe. He's going to play it cautious. He's going to send some scouts to Northrend. He's also going to meet with Jaina to find out what the Alliance are doing about it. Garrosh says, to hell with that. We need to crush the Alliance first, then deal with the Scourge. The Alliance, they're clearly the bad guys here. And Thrall's like, man, like, really? You have no reason to hate them. Like, why are you so angry? And Garrosh just screams. And so Thrall's a little bit pissed. Thrall, being a little bit annoyed, decides to punish Garrosh for his impudence and makes a comment about Garrosh's father, thus provoking Garrosh to challenge him to Mak-Gorah. The two go to the arena and have a very casual Mak-Gorah, armors on, weapons in hand. It's in the middle of this fight, in the middle of this Mak-Gorah, that the Scourge show up and ruin everyone's day. They pull a page from the Twilight's Hammer book, and Thrall says, okay, we need to stop this duel. We're going to deal with this later, but the Scourge is here, and that's kind of a bigger threat. And so the two leave the arena, and just as the city's attacked, and all the big names are there in force. We've got Garrosh, we've got Rhaegar, Saurfang, Sylvanas, us, the adventurers. After the attack, it's made clear to Thrall that the time for caution is over. We need to act as quick as possible. Garrosh wants to go to Northrend, and Thrall actually allows it. He says, all right, you're eager. You want to go? Fine. You're going to lead the offensive into Northrend. And so he promotes Garrosh to leader of the Warsong offensive up in Northrend. Saurfang joins him, and the Horde prepares for war. The war in Northrend leads to the devastating Wrathgate incident. Turns out the great hero, Grand Apothecary Putris, wasn't a hero at all. He was a total asshat. And a rogue organization of Forsaken decide to launch a new plague on both Alliance and Horde forces at the Wrathgate when the Lich King was drawn out of hiding, killing massive casualties on both sides.
Did you think we had forgotten? Did you think we had forgiven? Behold now the terrible vengeance of the Forsaken! Sylvanas. Death to the Scourge! And death to the living!
After this, Grand Apothecary Putris and his loyalists, alongside Varimathras, take the Undercity from Sylvanas. There is a coup and an attempted assassination on